Today on Charged Alpha, we're covering Novo Nordisk, a 100-year-old Danish pharmaceutical company that became one of the most talked about stocks on the planet thanks to two drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy.
The GLP-1 revolution. Those two drugs are semaglutide formulations that suppress appetite and regulate blood sugar. They started as diabetes treatments and became the first pharmaceutical tools to meaningfully treat obesity.
Novo Nordisk was founded in Denmark in 1923, following Nobel Prize-winning insulin research by August and Marie Krogh. Making insulin affordable for diabetic patients has been its founding mission ever since.
In 1989, Novo and Nordisk merged to form Novo Nordisk AS. Decades of diabetes care research eventually led to the GLP-1 drug class, and in 2017, Ozempic received FDA approval for type 2 diabetes management.
The turning point came in 2021 when Wegovy received FDA approval for chronic weight management, the first drug to show 15+% body weight reduction in large clinical trials.
On the business model, roughly 84% of revenue is diabetes and obesity care, Ozempic, Wegovy, and the Victoza franchise. The remainder is rare disease, bleeding disorders, and growth hormone therapies.
Novo Nordisk trades on the NYSE as an ADR but reports in Danish krone. Revenue has grown sharply over the past 3 fiscal years as GLP-1 demand accelerated far beyond initial forecasts.
Gross margins hold above 80%, which reflects the pricing power of branded pharmaceutical drugs with limited competition. That premium is real, but under increasing pressure from biosimilar development.
On dividends, Novo Nordisk pays a semi-annual dividend in Danish krone, with the USD equivalent fluctuating based on exchange rates. The company has steadily grown its dividend alongside earnings for years.
Competitively, the main rivalry is with Eli Lilly, whose Mounjaro and Zepbound products are also GLP-1 drugs and have been gaining market share. This is a two-horse race for the obesity drug market at scale.
Sanofi and AstraZeneca have broader pharmaceutical portfolios but lack the GLP-1 dominance that defines Novo Nordisk's current identity. For now, Novo is the category pioneer with the longest revenue track record.
Globally, Novo Nordisk distributes to over 170 countries. Supply chain constraints have been a real limitation. Manufacturing capacity for semaglutide has struggled to keep pace with unprecedented demand.
Production facilities in Denmark, France, the United States, China, and Brazil support the global supply chain. Novo has invested billions in capacity expansion, but the ramp-up takes years.
On leadership, Lars Fruergaard Jørgensen has served as CEO since 2017. He joined Novo in 1991 and worked across finance, strategy, and global business units before reaching the top role.
His tenure coincides with the GLP-1 commercial explosion. Novo Nordisk's market capitalization grew from roughly $50 billion to over $200 billion during his time as CEO.
Jørgensen has also navigated pricing scrutiny from U.S. lawmakers and the growing biosimilar threat, with measured messaging about Novo's clinical differentiation and next-generation pipeline candidates.
That pipeline is the next chapter. Novo Nordisk's Q1 2026 earnings results are now in, and the revenue trajectory and guidance for its next-generation obesity treatments are the story to watch.
We unpack all of it in the full quarterly episode: Ozempic and Wegovy growth, the Lilly competition in the numbers, and how Novo Nordisk is positioning for the next decade of obesity care.
Novo Nordisk reported Q1 2026 revenue of $14.97 billion, beating the $11.17 billion estimate by 34%, on 32% constant currency growth. Adjusted EPS of $1.04 beat the 87-cent estimate by 19%. The oral Wegovy pill exceeded 200,000 weekly prescriptions in the U.S. This is Charged Alpha. I'm Hudson.
And I'm Lana. Novo Nordisk is the world's leading GLP-1 drug maker, headquartered in Denmark. The company produces Ozempic and Rybelsus for type 2 diabetes and Wegovy for chronic weight management, all based on semaglutide, a synthetic glucagon-like peptide that reduces appetite and improves blood sugar control. Novo trades as NYSE ADR and reports in Danish krone. Market cap is approximately $409 billion.
CEO Lars Fruergaard Jørgensen has led Novo Nordisk since 2017, overseeing its transformation from a diabetes specialist into the dominant global obesity drug company. Jorgensen's strategic priorities are expanding GLP-1 manufacturing capacity, developing next-generation obesity medicines, and building the oral semaglutide franchise. The January 2026 U.S. launch of oral Wegovy is the most significant commercial milestone under his tenure.
Novo Nordisk's Q1 revenue of $14.97 billion grew 32% constant currency year over year and beat the $11.17 billion estimate by 34%. That was one of Novo's largest quarterly estimate beats, driven by demand for Wegovy products, including the oral formulation launched in the U.S. on January 5, 2026.
Adjusted EPS of $1.04 beat the 87-cent estimate by 19%. Adjusted operating profit reached 32.8 billion Danish krone, reflecting exceptional GLP-1 operating leverage. Gross margin runs approximately 83%, with operating margins in the high 40% range, among the best in global pharmaceuticals.
Obesity care sales grew 22% at constant exchange rates in Q1. The oral Wegovy pill removes the injection barrier, limiting GLP-1 adoption among needle-averse patients. Weekly prescriptions exceeded 200,000 for the week ending April 17th, the strongest GLP-1 volume launch in U.S. history. Management called the oral pill's uptake meaningfully ahead of internal pre-launch projections.
Free cash flow was approximately $3.8 billion, reflecting the GLP-1 franchise's high cash generation. Novo holds $4.8 billion in cash against $9.2 billion in total debt, a manageable net debt position given the predictable earnings stream. The 1.5% dividend yield reflects a balance between shareholder returns and manufacturing investment.
Full year 2026 guidance was raised following Q1 outperformance. Novo now expects accelerating oral Wegovy adoption through the remainder of the year. The guidance raise signals that management's oral semaglutide volume models have exceeded pre-launch expectations, a meaningful validation given prior debate about whether oral GLP-1s could achieve injection-comparable adoption rates.
The Q1 revenue headline reflects currency translation. Novo reports in Danish krone, Q1 revenue was 96.8 billion DKK, which translated to $14.97 billion US dollars at prevailing rates. US dollar investors must adjust for DKK to USD fluctuations that can create reported revenue swings diverging from the underlying DKK business performance. In periods of dollar strength, Novo's dollar EPS can miss consensus despite healthy DKK results, a recurring disconnect that creates volatility around earnings dates.
Analyst reaction to Novo Nordisk's Q1 was uniformly positive. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan maintained overweight and buy ratings, raising price targets following the oral Wegovy prescription launch data. The 34% revenue beat was the headline, but analysts were equally focused on prescription trajectory as the key leading indicator for the oral pill's long-term commercial potential.
Bulls model the oral Wegovy pill as a market expansion catalyst. If oral semaglutide reaches patients who declined injections, estimated at 30 to 40% of potential GLP-1 users, the total addressable market expands significantly. 200,000 weekly prescriptions in week 15 of the U.S. launch supports that thesis. Annualized, that run rate would represent a multi-billion-dollar product independently.
The valuation debate centers on sustainability of 30+% revenue growth. At 22 times forward earnings and $409 billion in market cap, Novo is priced for continued GLP-1 dominance. Analysts who model the oral pill achieving parity with injectable adoption over 3 to 5 years see substantial upside to current consensus, particularly for 2027 and 2028 revenue. A re-rating toward Eli Lilly's forward multiple would imply meaningful upside from current levels.
The CagriSema pipeline is the key next catalyst. CagriSema, Novo's combination of cagrilintide and semaglutide, delivered disappointing Phase 3 weight loss data in late 2024 relative to investor expectations. Analysts now model a CagriSema 2027 commercial launch. The Phase 3 completion timeline is a key watch point for the second half of 2026. Success would represent meaningful competitive positioning against Eli Lilly's tirzepatide pipeline.
Bears focus on Eli Lilly's tirzepatide-based obesity pipeline as the primary threat. Zepbound's injectable is gaining share, and Lilly's oral tirzepatide program could challenge Novo's oral semaglutide advantage within 24 to 36 months. Analysts who model a GLP-1 oral duopoly by 2028 apply a discount to Novo's longer-term earnings growth trajectory.
The bull case is the oral GLP-1 market expansion thesis. If oral Wegovy reaches needle-averse patients who declined injections, total annual revenue could reach $20 to $30 billion by 2029, the fastest product revenue ramp in pharmaceutical history. That would justify a materially higher earnings multiple than the current 22 times forward PE.
Novo Nordisk's manufacturing moat is underappreciated. GLP-1 drug manufacturing requires specialized peptide synthesis capacity that takes years to build. Novo's aggressive investments in Danish, US, and global manufacturing give it a supply chain advantage competitors cannot replicate quickly, sustaining commercial advantage even if a competitor achieves clinical parity.
The cardiovascular indication for semaglutide, demonstrated in the SELECT trial, opens a second high-value market. If semaglutide achieves formulary approval for primary cardiovascular prevention, the target population expands dramatically. Bulls who model a cardiovascular semaglutide launch in 2027 or 2028 see Novo's revenue base potentially doubling within 5 years.
The primary bear case is Eli Lilly's tirzepatide program. Tirzepatide showed superior weight loss to semaglutide in head-to-head data. If oral tirzepatide matches oral semaglutide's efficacy and achieves U.S. approval by 2027, Novo's first-mover oral GLP-1 advantage narrows. Bears who model a duopoly rather than a Novo monopoly apply a meaningful discount to the bull case revenue trajectory.
Patent and biosimilar risk is a medium-term overhang. Semaglutide's core patents begin expiring in the late 2020s, and biosimilar manufacturers, particularly from China and India, are advancing development programs. A successful biosimilar entry in the 2029 to 2031 window could accelerate pricing pressure on Novo's highest-margin products.
Reimbursement risk is an ongoing constraint. Most U.S. commercial insurers do not cover Wegovy for obesity, only for cardiovascular indications. The oral formulation may face similar battles, limiting accessible volume to patients with cardiovascular conditions or those who pay full list price. If broad commercial coverage does not materialize by 2027, the oral pill's addressable market is structurally narrower than the bull case.
Currency risk is structural for U.S. investors. Novo's revenue is DKK denominated. Dollar strength compresses translated earnings for ADR holders, even if the underlying DKK business performs on plan. This creates recurring earnings per share volatility disconnected from business fundamentals, a persistent source of analyst estimate variability.
Eli Lilly is Novo Nordisk's primary peer and competitive threat. Lilly's tirzepatide, Mounjaro for diabetes and Zepbound for obesity, has demonstrated superior weight loss efficacy to semaglutide in head-to-head data. Lilly's market cap of approximately $800 billion reflects the market's view that the tirzepatide's clinical edge could grow its GLP-1 share over the next 3 to 5 years.
AstraZeneca is a large-cap pharmaceutical peer in cardiovascular and diabetes. AstraZeneca's SGLT2 inhibitor Farxiga competes with GLP-1s for type 2 diabetes, and AstraZeneca is building its own obesity pipeline. The comparison shows that the industry's largest players are all investing in metabolic disease, validating the market while increasing long-term competitive intensity.
Amgen's Maritide showed differentiated weight loss and weight maintenance data in its obesity program. If mechanism-differentiated competitors achieve approval, the obesity market could segment by mechanism of action rather than being dominated by GLP-1 alone, structurally capping Novo's long-term market share even as total obesity drug spending grows.
On valuation, Novo trades at a modest discount to Eli Lilly on forward earnings, reflecting Lilly's tirzepatide efficacy premium and broader pipeline. The gap has narrowed following the oral Wegovy launch success. Sustained 30+% revenue growth through 2026 and accelerating oral pill prescriptions should compress the valuation discount further.
Novo Nordisk's options market ahead of Q1 showed call-skewed positioning, reflecting optimism about the oral Wegovy launch. Pre-earnings implied volatility was elevated, consistent with binary outcome risk after a significant new product launch. The post-earnings stock gain of approximately 5% was within the expected implied move range.
The 34% revenue beat against consensus was larger than the implied move priced into options. Options traders who had positioned for an upside move captured gains as the stock moved higher. Sustained post-earnings call premium reflects market expectations that weekly prescription data for oral Wegovy will continue tracking above initial sell-side models through Q2 2026.
Insider activity at Novo Nordisk reflects its foundation-controlled structure. The Novo Nordisk Foundation holds approximately 28% of voting shares, providing long-term strategic stability. CEO Lars Fruergaard Jørgensen and senior management hold equity through restricted and performance share programs. No significant open market purchases were disclosed in the most recent reporting window.
The foundation ownership structure is a long-term positive. Novo's controlling shareholder has a mission of advancing medicine, not maximizing near-term share price, allowing management to invest in manufacturing and R&D without activist pressure. For investors who view GLP-1 as a decade-long secular trend, foundation ownership and management stability are competitive advantages that reduce the corporate governance risk discount applied to many large-cap pharmaceutical companies.
Novo Nordisk delivered a 34% revenue beat and 19% EPS beat in Q1 2026. Oral Wegovy's record U.S. prescription launch and the full-year guidance raise confirm the oral semaglutide thesis is executing ahead of plan.
Bottom line, Novo Nordisk is the GLP-1 franchise leader. Oral Wegovy is off to the strongest GLP-1 launch in U.S. history. The bear case is Eli Lilly competition and patent risk. The bull case is oral semaglutide reaching a market that injections never could.
Financial data and charts sourced from Financial Modeling Prep. Charged Alpha is for informational and educational purposes only. This is not investment advice. Always do your own research before making investment decisions. Thanks for listening to Charged Alpha. Subscribe and leave a review if this was useful. New episodes every earnings season. See you on the next one.
Ooh-wee-doo! That ticker tape starts dancing fast. A bull market thrill that's built to last. Dividends are ringing up the swing. Listen to that sweet ka-ching. It's a Wall Street swing. That fast-paced rhythm makes you sing. Yeah, the Wall Street swing.